A man walked into a hotel and was flatly rejected because he didn't look like the ideal guest. But what the front desk clerk didn't know was the man in the faded hoodie the owner of the entire hotel chain? No surveillance camera. No CEO nameplate. Just one operator returning to where it all began to see, was the culture he built still alive or already dead? And what he uncovered behind those doors didn't just lead to a manager being fired in the middle of the lobby. It sparked a root-level overhaul of the entire hospitality system. Don't look away, because what happens next will make you see the service industry in a whole new light. And if you still believe kindness has a place in this world, watch until the end. And hit subscribe for more stories that stir the soul. I'm sorry, sir, but our policy is not to accept local guests. The words fell lightly, but they froze Samuel Whitmore in place right in the center of the lobby. Not because he was turned away, but because he knew that policy didn't exist. And the cruelest part, this was his hotel. That night, he walked in just like any regular guest. No custom-tailored suit, no private driver, no entourage. Just the rumpled look of a middle-aged man who seemed like he'd just stepped off an overnight train. No one at the hotel recognized him, the founder and operator of the 10-property Kingsport Suites chain. Not even the front desk clerk who turned him away bothered to look up. Samuel was one of the youngest hotel CEOs on the West Coast. After inheriting 4 properties from his father, who had suffered a sudden stroke 5 years ago, he doubled the business, built out modern operations, handpicked a new generation of managers, and restructured everything from branding to service standards. On paper, everything looked great, but something in his gut had started to stir. Over the past 6 months, the complaints began to trickle in. The front desk was rude. Booking app failed, and no one explained. I was turned away for not looking like a typical guest. At first, just a few emails. Then came the reviews on booking platforms. And finally, an anonymous letter from a former staff member detailing a silent discrimination culture at one of their newly acquired properties. Samuel was no stranger to crisis. But this time, he didn't call a board meeting. He didn't summon regional managers. He didn't draft a 3-page memo to the entire system. Instead, he made the boldest decision of his career. He became a nobody and walked into the hotel himself. He chose a location on the city's southern outskirts, a property that had once belonged to a different brand before being acquired by Kingsport. It had the highest volume of complaints but the lowest oversight. Samuel wanted to see it with his own eyes. No reports, no security feeds. He wanted to smell the lobby the way a guest would. He wanted to see how staff treated someone who didn't look wealthy. He wanted to know if the spirit his father had once passed down was still there. A hotel should be a place where no matter where you come from, you feel welcome. He walked into the lobby at 10 p.m. The space was quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly. Behind the desk sat a young man named Kevin staring at his phone. Samuel stepped forward, offering a tired smile, playing the part of a man fresh off a long journey. "Hey there, I'd like to book a room for the night." Kevin didn't look up. "Did you book online?" "No, just arrived in the city. Need a place to stay for the night." That's when Kevin finally glanced at him, and something in his eyes shifted for just a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry. Hotel policy is we don't take local guests." Samuel paused. Local guests? This city was where he'd headquartered the company. His penthouse was less than 10 miles away. "I don't understand. I can pay. I have a credit card." "I know, but that's the policy. Locals tend to be problematic." The response was light, but it struck like a punch to the face of everything he had built. He didn't argue. He didn't yell. He just stood there and observed, and remembered the way the employee avoided eye contact, the unspoken rules that had no place in the policy manual, and worst of all, the apathy, more dangerous than any mistake. He left the hotel without a word, but in his mind a plan was already forming. If they wouldn't accept me as a guest, then I'll return as an employee, not as a CEO, not as founder of Kingsport, just a man looking for a night shift job at the very hotel that had just turned himself away. 20 a.m. the next morning, Samuel stood once again at the hotel's front door, wearing the exact same clothes as the night before with one key difference. He wasn't here to book a room. He was here to apply for a job. No one in the hotel knew that the silver-haired man holding a printed resume from a street corner copy shop was actually the one who signed every employment contract in this building. As he walked in, the lobby felt quieter than the night before. Behind the front desk stood a woman in her 30s, tired eyes, a loose bun, and a name tag that read, Linda. Samuel stepped up and lowered his voice gently. "Excuse me, are you currently hiring?" Linda didn't bother looking up, fingers tapping away at her keyboard. "You'll need to apply on the company website. We don't take paper applications." Samuel gave a soft smile, intentionally keeping the tone a little tech unsavvy. "I don't have access to a computer right now. I was just hoping to ask if there's anyone I could speak to directly." Linda sighed, typed a few more keys, glanced briefly at him, then back to her screen. "No one's available." A voice spoke up from deeper in the lobby like a small spark in a cold fog. "Are you looking for a job?" Samuel turned. It was Nicole, the front desk clerk, who had stepped in the night before when he was denied a room. She looked more alert today, though her eyes still held the cautious wariness of someone used to not knowing who to trust. "Yes, I used to work front desk before. Just looking for something stable now." Nicole studied him for a moment, then turned to Linda. Linda didn't object, just shrugged as if to say, "Go ahead, why not? Come with me, I'll take you." To meet Eric, the morning shift manager. Samuel nodded and followed her down a narrow hallway that led to the back offices. They passed the staff break room. 2 people were buried in their phones, not looking up to greet anyone. The air reeked of burnt coffee. A fluorescent light flickered overhead. No one seemed to care. No one fixed it. Samuel didn't ask questions. Every detail spoke volumes, more than any performance review ever could. They entered a cluttered office where a young man sat behind a desk, brows furrowed. His name tag read Eric, Assistant Manager. Nicole tapped lightly on the doorframe. "Someone here looking for a front desk job?" Eric glanced up. His eyes scanned Samuel for exactly 0.8 seconds. "Got experience?" "Yes, I've done check-ins, booking management, guest services." "Good. Can you start this afternoon?" Samuel paused. "No interview, no ID check, not even a resume copy, just one question." One nod. "That was enough?" "Sure," he replied. "Thank you for the opportunity." Nicole gave him a quick tour of the system. While showing him how to manage check-ins, she exhaled quietly. "Most new hires don't ask anything. They're not planning to stay long anyway." Samuel glanced at her, beginning to understand why she had been the only one willing to speak up the night before. "How long has it been like this?" he asked, softly. Nicole looked around, then lowered her voice. "I've been here almost 2 years. Things started going downhill after the merger. Jason, the manager, he only cares about the numbers. As long as there are no major complaints or drops in revenue, he lets everything slide." Samuel nodded slightly. Every word she said was like a sharp needle, pricking at the very place he had suspected for months. This hotel's problem wasn't a few bad apples. It was rot from within, because no one believed anyone truly cared anymore. At the front desk, Samuel sat down and tested his new position. It felt oddly familiar, like when he was 22, working night shifts to pay for college. But now, he wasn't just logging check-ins. He was listening, watching, waiting for the moment to expose what was killing the service he once loved like a second child. Samuel's first shift began with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but a suffocating quiet, the kind that said, everyone here was just doing enough, not to get fired. From behind the front desk, Samuel sat beside Nicole, observing how she handled guests, answered phones, and fulfilled small requests like extra towels, new key cards, or simply directions to the elevator. She worked smoothly, gently, and professionally. And what struck Samuel the most, she always smiled, even if it was a tired smile. And the others, Kevin, the front desk clerk from last night, was still on the morning shift. He looked sluggish, eyes glued to his phone. Linda, the senior receptionist, snapped at guests anytime they requested a change. Eric, the assistant manager, didn't step out of his office all morning. Occasionally he walked by, just to scowl, then disappeared again. And then it happened. A man in a suit, red-faced and angry, stormed from the elevator toward the front desk. Room 406. The AC is completely broken. Feels like a furnace. I want a new room. Kevin didn't look up from his screen. The hotel's fully booked. I can't move you. Then send maintenance. Maintenance isn't here yet. Then call them in. Kevin sighed loudly, as if he were being unreasonably disturbed. Samuel leaned toward Nicole and whispered, "Is maintenance on site?" Nicole nodded subtly. "Yes. Carl's in the chair repair room." "Then why did Kevin say no one's here?" "Because Kevin doesn't like calling them. He doesn't want to get questions back." She shrugged. "People here avoid responsibility like it's fire." Samuel clenched his fists beneath the desk. The frustration wasn't aimed at the young employee. It was at a system that had trained them to respond with avoidance. Just then, Jason, the general manager, emerged from his office. His face instantly shifted to the perfect smile. "Mode, hello, sir. What seems to be the issue?" The guest pointed angrily at Kevin. "This guy couldn't handle the broken AC. I've called 3 times. Jason nodded, turned to Kevin and said, "Next time, just tell the guest we've noted the issue. Don't argue." No apology, no resolution, just a performance. Pacify the guest, send him away. Samuel was stunned. The last time he'd seen a work culture this broken was in a hotel that went bankrupt 10 years ago. After the incident, Kevin went back to scrolling on his phone like nothing had happened. Nicole pursed her lips and silently handled a new reservation. Jason vanished into his office like a ghost. The entire system was running on pretending everything was fine. By mid-afternoon, Samuel politely asked if he could wander around to get familiar with the property. Nicole nodded. And just like that, his real undercover audit began. In the staff break room, no one spoke. They ate quickly, scrolled their phones, no laughter, not a word, just heavy sighs. In housekeeping, a middle-aged woman named Martha hunched over a service cart. 8-hour shift, 18 rooms. Someone called out and no one's covering. I'm used to it. When Samuel asked why she didn't report it to management, she gave a hollow chuckle. "I did," they said. "Just hang in there a bit longer." Been hanging for 3 months now. In the maintenance room, Samuel found Carl, a seasoned handyman, patching a broken chair leg. When asked about the AC issue earlier that morning, Carl snorted, I was sitting right here. No one said anything. When guests complain, they just say maintenance is busy to avoid dealing with it. Then it all gets dumped on me. Samuel didn't respond, but in his mind, the puzzle pieces were falling into place. Staff are refusing to collaborate. Managers pretending to lead, every issue handled by hiding it or passing the buck. This wasn't a hotel anymore. It was a stage. Everyone was acting, and Samuel knew if he didn't shut down the play on, the whole production would collapse, dragging his 5-year-old brand with it. That afternoon, Samuel returned to the front desk, pretending to continue his training. Nicole was handling a group check-in, and Kevin sat silently behind the computer, eyes locked on the screen. Jason, the general manager, was still in his office, occasionally stepping out with the classic hands-on leader look, though, in reality, he had no idea what was actually happening at the front desk. Samuel realized things were running, but no one was actually steering. A massive ship adrift on open water, and if it didn't change course soon, it was bound to hit the rocks. As the day wore on, Samuel strolled down the hallway on the 3rd floor, pretending to get familiar with the property. Halfway down the corridor, he spotted Linda, the weary receptionist from that morning, sitting in a tiny maintenance room. Her back was against the wall, eyes closed, just breathing. "You okay?" he asked gently, still playing the role of the new guy. Linda opened her eyes, exhaled. "It's normal, tired, but then again, everyone is these days. Here, being tired is just default." There was no self-pity in her tone. It sounded like a confession from someone who had grown numb to exhaustion. Samuel sat down beside her. The two sat quietly for a moment. Then he asked softly, "Did you used to like working here?" Linda smiled, the kind of smile sadder than tears. "I was the first one to unlock the doors when this hotel got merged. Back then I hoped I'd move up to shift lead. But things changed. New people moved up. The old ones got pushed aside. Now I just wait for the end of the month to get my paycheck. That's enough." Samuel walked out of the room, his heart heavier than ever. Not just for Linda, but because there were dozens more like her. Employees who once had energy, but were slowly left behind in a system that didn't value emotion, only metrics. That night, he didn't go home. He booked a room at the hotel next door, small, modest, but quiet. He opened his laptop and pulled up the company's full HR database. He searched for employees with over 1 year of service, those who once received high performance ratings, but had recently dropped locations with the highest turnover in the last quarter. Every number confirmed what his eyes had already seen. The system was bleeding from within, slowly, quietly. The next morning, Samuel returned, ready to begin phase 2 of the plan. Not just observation, but revelation, cold but fair. He sent a message to his senior assistant, the only person who knew he was undercover. "Prepare transfer paperwork for Jason. Also, send me Nicole's full personnel file, as detailed as possible." Debbie Thine. Noon, Jason stepped out of his office, no longer suspicious of Samuel. In fact, he even patted him on the shoulder and smiled. "Heard you're the new guy. Keep it up. I appreciate people who follow orders." Samuel smiled back. A cold smile. The kind that said, "It's time for the truth to surface." That afternoon, the hotel operated as usual. Guests came and went through the lobby. Kevin remained slouched behind the desk. Linda worked like a machine. And Jason, the self-proclaimed general manager, strode around like he owned the place. Only Samuel knew. This was Jason's final hour at the Kingsport Hotel. 27. p.m. Samuel knocked on the manager's office door. "What is it?" Jason asked, eyes still glued to the screen. Samuel stepped inside and quietly closed the door behind him. His voice was calm, but every word sliced like a sharpened blade. "I think it's time we had a real conversation about how you've been running this hotel." Jason looked up, raising an eyebrow. "I'm sorry, who are you again?" Samuel didn't answer right away. He walked slowly toward the desk, eyes locked on Jason. "You turned guests away based on policies that don't exist. You covered for apathetic staff, ignored maintenance requests, overworked the housekeeping team, and most of all, you've created a culture of fear where no one dares speak up." Jason shot to his feet, visibly irritated. "Who do you think you are? You just started here, you've worked a few shifts, you don't know how this place operates," Samuel cut in. His voice dropped lower, colder. "I'm Samuel Whitmore. I own this place." The room imploded into silence. Jason's face turned ghostly white. 1 second, 2, 3. No sound escaped him, only his eyes twitched, disbelieving what he'd just heard. Samuel didn't wait for a reaction. He stepped closer, voice firmer. "I've been here 3 days. I've seen the cracks with my own eyes. And you, no one else, are the rot at the core. You weren't deceived. You knew exactly what was happening and you chose to look away." Jason stammered. I didn't know, I thought." "Exactly," Samuel cut in again. "You thought. And that thought just cost you your job." He placed an envelope on the desk. "Inside is your termination letter, effective immediately. You have 2 hours to leave the premises. Security will escort you if necessary." Jason's face drained of color. His lips moved, but no words came out. Samuel turned toward the door. Hand on the handle, he paused. "One more thing." He looked back, eyes steady. "I don't hate you for being a bad manager. I'm furious that you made good people, like Nicole, Linda, Carl, suffer in silence and lose faith." As Samuel stepped into the lobby, all eyes turned to him. Nicole froze at the desk. Kevin looked up for the first time that day. Linda stepped out from behind the phone, holding her breath. Samuel stood in the center of the lobby, voice loud and clear. "Jason is no longer employed at this hotel. Starting today, everything changes." The lobby fell into a stunned silence, until Carl, emerging from the hallway, nodded slowly. Finally, someone had the guts to do it. Samuel turned to Nicole, his expression serious but warm. "You were the only one who dared to speak up and do the right thing. Starting now, you're the new assistant manager." Nicole's eyes widened in disbelief. "Me? Really? No one deserves it more. And I need someone like you to help rebuild from the ground up." Nicole choked up, only able to nod. Samuel looked at the entire staff. "If you want to help me fix this place, I'll walk every step of the way with you. But if you want to keep doing things the old way, the exit's right there." No one moved. A minute passed. Then one person clapped. Then 2, 3. And the whole lobby erupted into applause like a weight had finally been lifted. Jason's departure had an immediate effect. The atmosphere in the hotel changed that very afternoon. Linda started answering phone calls with a softer tone. Kevin, though still visibly tired, lifted his head when guests approached. Carl took the initiative to inspect rooms with maintenance requests. Nicole, though her hand still trembled, stood in her new role as assistant manager, reorganizing shift schedules and auditing responsibilities. Samuel observed it all, quietly satisfied. But he knew this was only the beginning. That evening, Samuel stayed late in Jason's old office. Personnel files, internal documents, and a small portable hard drive still sat on the desk. He plugged it in, and what he found was his second shock. The drive contained a string of email exchanges between branch managers, including falsified reports, inflated performance charts, and disturbingly real messages. Local guests. Remove. No need to log. Speed up housekeeping to cut hours. If guests don't notice, it's fine. Tell new hires not to touch the feedback system. Too risky. Familiar names appeared. Some were managers whom Samuel had personally appointed. A chill ran down his spine. The problem wasn't just this hotel. It was the entire system. He leaned back in the chair. Dim light. The clock neared midnight. This was no longer a branch-level correction. This was a full-scale overhaul. If he didn't see it through, Kingsport would collapse from within, without even needing a scandal. The next morning, Samuel called Nicole and Eric, Jason's former assistant, into a small meeting room. "I've seen what Jason left behind," he began, "but what I want to know is, who saw it and stayed silent?" Nicole didn't flinch, her eyes met his. Eric furrowed his brow. "I knew things were off," he admitted. "But Jason said it was company policy. I thought, if you wanted stability, I should stay quiet." Samuel nodded gently. "I don't blame you for not speaking up. But from now on, anyone who stays silent in the face of injustice is part of it." Then he did something no one expected. "I'm stepping away from the executive office. For the next 2 months, I'll visit all 10 locations as a regular person." Nicole's eyes widened. "You're going undercover again?" Samuel nodded. "No, one will know. Just you and my assistant. I need to see how each place really lives, not through reports. I'm also rebuilding the anonymous feedback system, and..." He paused, locking eyes with Nicole and Eric. "I'm rebuilding our culture, starting with people like you, with trust." After the meeting, Samuel called his assistant. "I need full files on all regional managers, review the onboarding protocol, and initiate Project Reclaim Kingsport, a full culture reset." That night he stood outside room 406, the room with the broken AC from earlier. Carl had just finished the repairs and was wiping his hands. Samuel gave him a nod. "Thank Peter. You kept doing the right thing, even when no one was looking." Carl looked at him. No smile. But he said one thing. "About time someone up top came down here." Less than 48 hours after Jason was dismissed, the atmosphere in the hotel had changed. No longer did it feel heavy, like something was being hidden. The air seemed lighter even though the work remained the same. Staff had started talking to each other again. It might seem small, but to Samuel it was the first sign of revival. He got to work immediately. First, rebuild the team. Hired more housekeeping staff to ensure no one carried more than the standard room load. Added more front desk personnel to prevent endless shifts. Restructured the maintenance department so small problems would be handled immediately, not left afloat. All of it started with one simple rule. No one gets left behind, no one stays silent. Samuel held an all-staff gathering over the weekend, not to speak as a CEO, but to listen as a colleague. Sitting with them in the newly tidied break room, he asked, "If you could change just one thing about this place, just one, what would it be?" Linda said, "Doing extra work and no one acknowledges it." Carl said, "Not knowing who to trust when something goes wrong." Nicole said, "Feeling like I'm holding on to the values of service alone." Samuel didn't take notes. He looked at each of them and said, "Then from today, you won't be alone anymore. And with that, Project Reclaim Kingsport officially began. Raise the base pay for all frontline staff. Samuel knew, no loyalty lasts if people can't live on their wages. Created an anonymous feedback system linked directly to him. Each month, Samuel would read every report himself, no intermediaries. Launched Kingsport Values Training, a new core values program. All staff, new and old, would join. The core message: service is not an obligation, it's a moral duty. Samuel also issued a welcome locals policy, permanently erasing the unspoken discrimination that had crept in. Whether you live 1 mile or 1,000 from this hotel, you deserve to be treated as a human being. Nicole, now officially assistant manager, became the leader of the branch transformation. She began hosting short shift meetings, encouraging open feedback and setting weekly goals. Piece by piece, things started clicking into place. Guests praised the warm, personal welcome. Staff acted with more initiative. Some returning guests were surprised. It's the same hotel, but it feels completely different. Samuel didn't leave. He stayed, no longer pretending to be the new guy, but as someone genuinely walking beside them. He checked in guests, helped with housekeeping when needed, ate lunch with staff, listening to their stories about family and dreams, things no one ever dared to share with the big boss before. 3 weeks in, he hosted a team circle. No mic, no slides, just folding chairs arranged in a circle in the hotel lobby. We're not perfect, he said, but we're headed the right way, and this time I'm not taking my eyes off this place again. 3 months after Samuel, Whitmore walked into the hotel wearing a faded hoodie in the face of a nobody. He returned to the lobby in a simple suit, no name tag, no introduction. But this time, every staff member greeted him with a smile. The hotel today wasn't more luxurious. It didn't need to be. All it needed was front desk staff who knew guests by name, housekeepers who no longer had to hide their size, and Carl, the maintenance man, in a fresh new uniform with no worn shoulders. Nicole stood beside Samuel, now the official general manager of the branch since Jason's departure. See that? She said, eyes shining. This place, it's alive again. Samuel gave a small nod. Not Samuel. From now on, call me Sam. A week later at the regional internal meeting, Samuel stood on stage before representatives from all 10 Kingsport Suites branches. No prepared speech, just a story, starting from the night he was turned away at the front desk, to cleaning rooms, with the team, to the sleepless nights reading anonymous emails that said, "We used to be proud to be part of Kingsport. Now we're just trying not to get fired." And then he ended with this: "A brand isn't built on room count or a glowing logo. It's built into the eyes of the front desk when a guest walks in the way maintenance answers a call, and in the integrity shown when no one's watching." His final words echoed what his father had repeated his whole life. A hotel is where people come to rest, but as operators, we never rest in our pursuit to remain kind. That night, Samuel returned to the first hotel, the one where it all began. Linda sat in the staff lounge sipping tea. When she saw him, she smiled gently. "So, what role are you playing this time?" Samuel sat beside her and took a sip of tea. "The one I should have played from the start, a person who listens. Some CEOs respond to crises with spreadsheets. Some rely on PR to save the brand. But Samuel Whitmore began again by becoming invisible. He didn't use power to change a hotel. He used trust to shift an entire system. And if you ask, what truly builds a strong brand? The answer doesn't live in a contract. It lives in how you treat the smallest person in your company. A man turned away at check-in changed an entire industry, not because he was the boss, but because he chose to stand at the end of the line, to understood what those at the front of the line needed. A CEO doesn't need to give orders to reshape culture. He just needs to quietly stand in line, like a guest. And from the lowest vantage point, he saw what the boardroom never could. Good people slowly swept away in silence, procedures that smothered the human spirit, and small errors are quietly destroying the brand. But he didn't give up. He stayed. He cleaned, he checked in guests, he fixed things, and then he rebuilt an entire empire with his own hands and heart. If this story deserves to be shared, send it to someone in hospitality you admire. Drop a comment. I choose to rebuild through people if you believe. Respect, empathy, and trust are still the 3 values that can save any system. Subscribe now for more real-life undercover stories, where truth gets exposed and humanity wakes up.